What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Keep It Hoop YouTube channel. Last night, we saw the Milwaukee Bucks winning a huge Game 4 at home, tying the series up at 2 apiece. And now both teams have won their games at home with Game 5. Going back to Phoenix, we'll see if that trend holds up. I'm excited for that game. But yeah, I wanted to key in on the last 2 minutes of the game because I do think it kind of summarized the game as a whole. And also just, we saw Milwaukee just totally outplay Phoenix down the stretch. Obviously, it's easier to do when you're at home. But yeah, we start off here with a Devin Booker ISO. Look, Devin Booker had an insane game, right? Solidified himself as set the record for having the most points in his first postseason. Another 40-plus point game and just dominated, right? Really good game, but I think this is a situation where he tries to do a little bit too much. His isolation game, while it's pretty good, still not, I wouldn't say top 5, top 10 in the league. I still think there's some things he needs to work on. He gets a little bit of a mismatch in Pat Connaughton. You'd rather have Pat Connaughton on you than PJ Tucker. That being said, Pat Connaughton, he was one of the best athletes in his draft class coming out. I think he set the record for the vert test at those combines, and not an awful defender, but I just think he can get a better shot than this, especially against Pat Connaughton. Again, he tries hard, but not known as an elite defender. I think at this point when he has Pat Connaughton's hips turned, right, going this way, maybe a through the leg, change of direction into here for a pull-up. And then if Giannis does help, you still have Chris Paul in the corner, who I'll talk about later. Despite him not having a good game, I still think you have to trust him. I would have rather seen that. I think, again, he could have gotten a better shot than this contested lean and jump shot. I also think just another key thing I really wanted to point out here. He has Mikal Bridges right here. And granted, the spacing isn't great because, you have PJ Tucker kind of scrambling. He's trying to get back to Jay Crowder, and Khris Middleton's here. But I still do think that Mikal Bridges is open enough, or maybe Mikal Bridges could come up a little bit for a better passing angle. But that being said, look, the Suns just need to get Bridges more involved. In the first 2 games, right, in Phoenix, when the Phoenix Suns won, Mikal Bridges averaged 20.5 points per game on 13 of 28 shots, so averaging about 14 shots a game. In their 2 losses in Milwaukee, he averaged 5.5 points per game on 5 of 8 shooting. That's 8 shots in 2 games. And look, I thought that the role players for the Suns were going to play worse. I thought that guys like Cameron Johnson, Mikal Bridges, Cameron Payne, that they're going to play a little worse at in Milwaukee than they did at home, because that's usually what happens with role players. But I thought it would be a situation where Mikal Bridges maybe gets like a few shots less and then shoots a little bit worse. But for him to only get 8 shots in 2 games combined, I think it's just unacceptable for the playmakers on the team, right? I think Chris Paul and Devin Booker need to do a better job of finding Mikal Bridges. Bridges obviously needs to be more aggressive, find his shots, and find ways to get open. And I also think a little bit's on Monty Williams too, and not trying to run more plays for him, whether it's out of bounds plays or just out of timeout plays. And granted, right, you do want to get Chris Paul and Devin Booker going and get them easy shots, but I do think that getting guys like Mikal Bridges, Jay Crowder, who did have a good game 3, and also, Cameron Johnson, who I think he played fine for the most part in the 2 games in Milwaukee. Getting those role players going is big because it keeps the Milwaukee Bucks defense honest, doesn't let them load up on Chris Paul and Devin Booker as much. And granted, again, Devin Booker also had a really good game 4, struggled in game 3, might have helped with that, might have helped with Chris Paul's inefficiency in game 4 as well. So I do think that's a huge thing that the Suns are going to need to go back to game 5 when they go back to Phoenix. Right, so Devin Booker misses a tough shot. They go out into transition. Giannis ends up here drawing a foul. It is what it is. Agree or disagree, whatever. Bucks end up running a play, pick and roll with Giannis and Khris Middleton. Khris Middleton, we all know, played a really good game 4, and has been a closer for a lot of these close games in Milwaukee, right? He's the closer, the one guy who can really get his own jump shot consistently, and he's been big for that team, right? But I do want to, because people are now saying, all right, Giannis is the 1A or the Batman or the most valuable player on this team, and that's ridiculous, right? Giannis is still the best player on this team, the most important, and it's not even close. Does Giannis's inability to knock down free throws or jump shots hurt? Yes. Is Khris Middleton more of a closer? Yes. But that doesn't make Khris Middleton better or more important, right? You had a similar situation in Los Angeles, early 2000s with Shaq and Kobe. Kobe was oftentimes found with the ball in his hands a lot. Better free throw shooter, obviously. Better closer because he could make the jump shots. But was Kobe better than Shaq? No. During those years, no. Shaq was more dominant. Shaq was better. Shaq couldn't have won without Kobe. And I think that's the same situation here. I don't think Giannis can win without Middleton, at least for this playoff run. But that doesn't mean Khris Middleton is better or more valuable. Shaq was more valuable for those teams, and he was, a better player. But yeah, I mean, and Shaq and Kobe, skill-wise and value-wise, is way closer than Giannis and Middleton is. But I think, that's a similar argument there. And you think about the Bucks, if you replace Middleton with a league average guard, I think that the Bucks are still a top 4 seed in the East. But if you replace Giannis with a league average forward, or maybe even a guy like Bobby Portis, that Bucks team just isn't that good, right? And, I think a lot of people get caught up in how Giannis gets his points. Osiris just texted me, earlier today, and he made a good point. Like, if Giannis's points came from jump shots or, just in a different way, kind of like Middleton does, then this conversation isn't even close. But because Giannis, people don't love or find it entertaining the way Giannis plays, and Middleton is more effective in, end of game situations with jump shots and free throws, I think people devalue or undervalue Giannis's impact on that team, and I think people overrate or overestimate Middleton's at times. And people are talking about how Giannis is, a superstar or a max player. He's still I root for Khris Middleton. I think he's a very good player, but he's a guy that has plateaued at 26-5 for the last few years and shooting, 43, 44, 45%, in the playoffs, and then 46, 47 in the regular season, which is still very good. Don't get me wrong, but he's a guy who's never shown that he can consistently be the go-to guy. He's never had that really opportunity, to be fair, but also we just haven't seen it. And he does disappear at times in the playoffs. He's been the main cause for the Bucks losing games in the playoffs, not only in this series or this playoff run, but plenty of series or games in the past as well. So not really to really give him that crown yet. Again, very good player. Great 1B or Robin, or if you want to just call them Batman and Superman like Kendrick Perkins did, fine, but I'm not anywhere close to putting Middleton above Giannis. So we have a situation here where, right, coming off of the Khris Middleton make, we all see, seen the highlights, insane block. One real quick thought on that versus the LeBron block. I think this is a more impressive, more athletically difficult, and more impressive block. But I think given the situation, that was a very clutch block as well. But given that LeBron's was in Game 7, I think that one's still a better block. But this is right up there as one of the most memorable blocks in the history of basketball and the NBA, right? And you also, another one that comes to mind, I know it's not in the finals, but also Tayshaun Prince chasing down Reggie Miller. Had to get some NBA history in there in this video. And then again, Khris Middleton with the ball in his hands ends up not making it, but Jrue Holiday coming up with the rebound over Chris Paul. That's big. Chris Paul, not a good game. Not a good game at all. If Chris Paul plays an average game, the Suns probably win this game, right? And look, Chris Paul, right, ends up losing the ball here, which leads to a Khris Middleton layup, and that pretty much seals the game. And again, that kind of just summarizes this game. Khris Middleton was huge. Chris Paul didn't show up. And, I'm just going to finish it there because, we end up with, free throws at the end and whatnot. But, yeah, Chris Paul just did not show up. Didn't shoot well. I think had 5 turnovers. And that was a really uncharacteristic part because we've seen him have games where he doesn't shoot well, but turnovers for Chris Paul, that's something, he's usually very good at keeping down. And against a team like Milwaukee, whose offense does tend to stall and get a little bit predictable at times. But if they can get out into transition, especially with Giannis and Khris Middleton and Jrue and these guys who are athletic and long and like to play in transition, you definitely don't want to give them any easy baskets. And 5 turnovers from your starting point guard, especially when he's not shooting well, it's just unacceptable. And Chris Paul will be the first one to tell you that, right? you get a masterpiece game from Devin Booker and you lose the game, which is unfortunate. But I mean, this has happened on both sides now, right? We saw in game 2 where Giannis just completely dominated Phoenix, but Milwaukee couldn't get anything out of Jrue Holiday or Khris Middleton, and they lose the game. So all things considered, pretty even series so far. I had the Suns in 6, hoping for a 7-game series. I'm rooting for Milwaukee because, again, I do want to see Giannis win one, but wouldn't be upset with any of those Phoenix guys winning it. I do expect Chris Paul to come back better, more focused, and just better overall in Game 5. He's a guy who's been pretty clutch in his career. We've seen him have rough playoff performances as well, but especially during these playoffs, he's been very, very good, especially in the big games. I expect Mikal Bridges to come out and for the team as a whole, the coaching staff to try to get him more shots and for him to look for a shot more. And I have Phoenix winning Game 5. And that's going to be huge because if Phoenix can't win Game 5, right, at home, then Milwaukee would have won 3 in a row, 1 on the road. And then you're looking at Game 6. It's going to be really rough for Phoenix to try to win on the road, right? Because Game 7's in Phoenix. But so I think Game 5 is a must-win for Phoenix, right? I think it's an important game for both teams, obviously, but for Phoenix, I think it's more important than for Milwaukee because Milwaukee still has Game 6 at home. And if they win that, obviously they can, even if they lose Game 5, if they win Game 6, they can force a Game 7. But yeah, that'll be it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please remember to like, subscribe, share, and comment. Also follow us on our social media pages. Links will be in the description below. And until next time, peace.